Hey everyone, just a quick video on PureRAW 5, which of course has just come out recently. And I was thinking about that and I thought if you're a new user to PureRAW, you want to know what it is, why you're going to bother using it, and is it worth it in the end. So those are the things I'm going to look at in this video. I will go through the software and kind of give my impressions of this new version as well. But let's go ahead and start with those three questions. So the first of those questions is, what is it? It's basically a pre-processor in a way. It is not a raw editor. It's just doing processing. And you can go in a couple of different directions. You can process to a DNG file, which gives you the capabilities of raw continuing on, or you can process to a TIFF, or you can process to a JPEG. And there's kind of different use cases there. So when it comes down to the why, you might be asking yourself, why do I need to pre-process something? Why can't I just go into my usual editor, whatever that might be? And it really comes down to three things, and that is detail, smoothness, and sharpness. And these are three things that DxO really does better than anyone else in the industry. So ultimately, yes, I would be happy to say you should just use Photolab, because Photolab does all of these things and more. But the truth is, you might have a workflow or a habit or just a comfort in another software like Lightroom or Capture One, and you want to keep using that, but you'd also like to be able to get the demosaicing, the noise reduction, the lens sharpness optimization that DxO is so good at. The final question is about, is it worth it? And yeah, there are a couple of costs to using PureRAW. One, it's an extra step in your process, so that'll take a little bit of extra time. And also it's going to output a second file. So it's, potentially, let's say you're doing a RAW workflow, you go from your RAW out of your camera to a DNG, and then you've got two files. And then you might not want to get rid of the original RAW because it's completely untouched, and maybe you want that for the future in case there are new technological updates that come along that mean that you can process it even better in the future. So you want to hold on to that original RAW, and then you've also got your DNG file. And then on top of that, your DNG file is bigger. So your original RAW, let's say if your original RAW is 25 megabytes, your DNG might be 60 or 70, so there's a size difference there as well. So there's more storage required. So is it worth it? It's a question that only you can answer. I think, to me, when I try to answer that question, I think it's worth it for images that you care about. It's maybe not worth it for every image, but if you have images that you want the absolute best of, then I think it is worth the little bit of extra time, and I think it is worth having potentially that slightly larger file on hand. But anyway, enough of all that jibber jabber. Let's jump over to the computer and I'll give you a little look at the software, what it's capable of, talk about a few of the changes that they've made, and yeah, let's go. Okay, so we're here on the computer, and I do not yet have PureRAW open. I've just got a folder full of images open, because before I do anything else, I want to show you something about this application, which is that it integrates into the operating system. So at its simplest, I don't even need to open the application. I can just run straight from here. So I could choose multiple images if I wanted, but for my example, I'll just grab one. I'm going to right-click. On Windows 11, there's a little bit of a quirk in that I need to choose Show More Options, and when that comes up, I get my different options. So we've got here, for example, DeepPRIME 3, and then we've got the ability to go to DNG, to JPEG, to TIFF, 16-bit TIFF, and then combinations thereof. And we've got that for DeepPRIME 3, for DeepPRIME XD2S. There's a lot of naming going on here. And just to try and clarify that a little bit, the original was DeepPRIME, and the thing about DeepPRIME is that noise reduction happens at the same time. It's sort of a demosaicing and noise reduction thing that's happening all together. So we had the original DeepPRIME. It was my favorite for ages and ages. And then they came out with DeepPRIME XD. And DeepPRIME XD means extra detail, so while it's doing its demosaicing and noise reduction, it's also working to pull out extra detail, as much as detail as possible. That's a bit processor intensive, so it takes a little bit longer to do the XD. Now, the development of XD over time has gone to XD2 and then XD2S. The reason we see this slash here is because XD2S does not work with Fuji files. So if you've got a Fuji and you grab this choice, your Fuji files are actually going to be processed with the original XD. For everyone else with a Bayer sensor, it's going to be X2S. And then you can see, of course, there's this third choice, which is XD3, which is part of a beta for X-Trans particularly. So they are looking to take care of Fuji customers along the way. But we've got this new DeepPRIME 3, which is a little bit, what would I say? I would say it's a little bit more natural sometimes. It's not quite as processor intensive. I think it's one that I'll be using heaps and heaps. So all of that said, I'm going to just go ahead and just do 2G and give it a moment to process. We should see a little window showing progress pop up in just a moment. There it goes. There we go, and that's how long it took to process, and it created a new folder within here with the DeepPRIME 3 file in it. There we go. It has done the trick. And quite quickly as well. So you don't really even need, if you're thinking about you want a simplified process, well, you don't actually even need to open the software if that's what you want to do. But you get more flexibility and more power if you do open the software. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll bring it up now. Okay, so here I am back, and for people that have used it before, you can see there's been a little bit of zhuzhing going on, and you'll see more of that. And that, by zhuzhing, what I mean is that they've kind of updated the interface a little bit. To me, it looks and feels a little bit more like the Photo Lab design approach. And I think there's some really slick, like this little animation here when I mouse over that, how the text changes and that lights up. Just a little touch, but I think it's nice, and I think it adds overall. So adding images to this thing, let's grab some. I'll grab this one, and this one, and this one. Sure, we'll grab a few here. That'll do. Grab those ones. Just going to drag them over, plunk them in, and it is organizing them for me. And now you can see up here in the top corner, there's a little Add Images button where I can navigate to my files. But I won't do that in this instance. I'll just literally drag a few more in. I know, I'm just thinking of ones that I have that I know are noisy, because people will no doubt be curious about the noise situation. So we'll do that. We'll grab those ones. You can see here one of those that I just brought in, or maybe more. Yeah, it looks like maybe two. Did not have the lens profile already downloaded. Lots of the others had already had them downloaded, but you'll get that. If it's not been, just click Save, and away we go. Right now, I've got my images showing up based on ISO. So this is the highest ISO, and working its way down just into little categories. You can always come to here and choose to have it go by date if you wanted to, if that was more your thing, or by name. However you want to have them organized, you can do exactly that. I'll leave it on ISO for now. Another new update is this mosaic mode. If I click on that, it's just going to display the images in a slightly different fashion. It's just going to be a preference, what you prefer to look at, but it is a neat little feature that they have added. Another neat little feature they have added is a browser, which they've had this process with preview, but actually, if I don't click that, if I just double click, it's opened up a browser for me. There's no ability to do any processing here. It's just going to let me literally navigate through the images. I've got, if I come to the side here, little arrows for going that way. I can use my mouse roller to zoom in and out. And interestingly, if I come down here onto the thumbnail view and I use my mouse, it's got a little wee sort of animation and slides that way. It's a little jerky, but I kind of like it. It's interesting. So again, this isn't a processor, it's just a browser. And one thing you might use this for example, is if you wanted to get a little bit closer look when you're deciding which ones you want to choose. So maybe I'm scrolling through and I think, oh yeah, I like this one. I want to choose that. So I can just put a wee tick there, and then I can just keep, shifting along. and I come to this one and I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. So I'll put a tick there. And then that's got those selected. So when I go back to the lightbox, those two are selected, they're highlighted. So now if I do go to my process or process with preview, it's got those two particularly in mind. So let's go to process with preview. Now they've got all of the images in the little thumbnail viewer down below here, but notice that there's only the two with ticks. So if I were to do add to queue, or if I were to do process now, only the ones that have ticks will be included in that command. So that's really important to keep in mind, is that which ones have a tick when you're going about that. So if we take a peek at this, we've got some good little controls up at the top. We can hide that. We can hide that. You know, maybe we want to just get a full image there so we can see it fully. We can get all of that space. We've kind of got a before and after, which is going to give us a little bit of a sense of what's going on. And we've got a slider before and after as well, where you can take things in this way. Then, of course, we also have the ability to zoom into 100% or to bring it back out to fit. And then we've got these different possibilities for how much pixel peeping we want to do. Right now, I can't overly tell what's happening because I'm kind of zoomed out. So there are things happening, but I can't tell. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Before I do, to just come down the side here. So we've got presets. Right now I've got the DeepPRIME 3 DNG preset selected. You can see if you drop that down that you do have the opportunity to kind of set your own up and to save your current settings as a new preset, which is a really nice feature, especially if it's, you know, a set of preferences that you're going to want to use again and again. Because this preset is selected, DeepPRIME 3 was automatically selected, ultimate quality and extra details, and then this one is grayed out because I'm not using Fuji files. One thing that DxO's always been really good at is putting inline help. So I've got the little question mark here, and it gives a really nice description of each of these to help me out along the way if I'm not sure what to choose. Just below that, and related to the denoising and demosaicing, we've got luminance and force details. And quite literally, let me just bump in here, bring it up. This image might be a bit clean for this, so I'm not seeing. Let me just grab another image that is a little higher ISO here. Oh, this one is. Let me bump into 100, so you can see what's going on there, how that's tidying the noise up. When you get in closer, you can tell more what's going on with that. But this luminance slider, if I were to drop that, it might be, maybe I'll go in even further. Let me go into 300% and let me bring that back. It was up on 40. So maybe you can see that cleared up a bit. If I bring it down, it just lets a little bit more luminance noise through. So if you want a little bit more noise in your image, you don't want it to be quite as clean looking, which I know that's a preference for me. I actually don't like images. I feel like lots of times we go too far with cleaning our images up. So I love that ability. Or, of course, if you want to go in the other direction, you can smack that up and it will take all the luminance noise away as well. But the default of 40 actually works really well. Just that's what that's about. You also have the opportunity at that stage of denoising and demosaicing to try and push details. It's usually a pretty small, I don't even know if we'll be able to tell. Yeah, it's just kind of introducing artifacts when I crank that all the way. You can probably get a little bit out of that before you, yeah, I mean, that's not really introducing too many artifacts there. So, you know, it's just a balance. Again, most often the default settings are going to be the settings that you want. It's only if you're trying to address a very particular problem. And keep in mind, this image was at like ISO 22,000 or something like that. You know, it's a very, I took it particularly for this purpose. It's a very high ISO image. And if I just, and I'm at 300% too, which is also good to remember. So if I come back out to 100%, that gets a little less ridiculous looking. And you can tell that it's actually a really nice result. If I was interested in trying to get more detail out of this, you know, especially this kind of a shot where it's really the intricate details of the fern might be important to me, I can try XD2S, and I won't have a before and after, but I think that does look a little bit more detailed to my eye. Let me go back again. Yep, not massive, a little bit but a little bit more detail. I don't know if that'll come across on YouTube or not, but it's definitely there. Also in the settings coming down, we've got the optical corrections, which are part of, DxO produces lens profiles. They've got over 100,000 different combinations of lens and camera profiles now. A lot of them out there, really high quality. It's one of the sort of their unique selling points. And part of that is the fact that when lenses have less sharp areas, their profiles are set to apply a bit more sharpening to try and balance that out. So with this, obviously you can turn it on, and we've got these different sort of presets of soft, standard, strong, and hard, and just about finding something that you kind of, you like. So I've just popped that up to hard, and it is cranking up the sharpness there. It's probably too much, but you get the idea. It's a great wee feature. And then we've got the trio of vignetting, chromatic aberration, and lens distortion, so other optical corrections that, again, part of what DxO is exceptionally well known for. And then a really neat feature down here, I love the fact that we get access to this, is that you can have the image, so when you do distortion correction, for example, it can move the image in a way in order to take the distortion out, and that can leave you with some black bits along the sides. So if it's doing the image crop to the original ratio, then you won't see those black bits. You'll still have your 2:3, for example, ratio image, and it'll just be brought in a little bit. We have the ability to go to maximum rectangle, which means that it doesn't care about the particular crop. It's just going to give you as much image as it can, while still keeping the black bars out of the side. And then we've got the complete image area, which looks like I might have, I'm just going to zoom out, looks like I might have just a smidge of black along the side here. You can see that? So it's just giving me that, which is really cool because, maybe I want to just take that out and warp it in some way, or maybe I want to fill it in a different way. Who knows? But I just love the fact that we get access to that possibility. For now, I'll just bring that back to crop to original ratio. Now, of course, one of the things they added with this release is, and I'm just going to come over here to find, I had a particular image that I thought would be good to use for this bit of conversation. So we've got local adjustments. And here I've got this image, and there's some detail in there, and if I just zoom into 100%, and right now I've got the lens sharpness optimization. I had already turned this up and it remembered it. I've got it on 200%. So if I turn that off, see, that's doing quite a lot of sharpening for this. Obviously it's turned up really extremely. But the thing about this is, the way this image is, there's some sort of out of focus bits at the bottom here. And if I turn this off, you can see that the out of focus area is getting like a little bit busier. So maybe you don't want this intensity on that bottom section that's meant to be out of focus. So you want to ease that off. So the great thing about locals is you can come in here, and we've got, your kind of usual suspects up here of size, feather, flow, opacity, and I can show the mask or change the color of the mask if it's, maybe if I'm working on something red is not ideal as my mask color. But basically what I can do is draw on a mask, and let me just zoom back out to be able to do this. Draw on a mask, and we just have simple functionality here because we're just defining areas where we don't want a certain effect to be applied, or we want it to be applied differently. And you can see over here, I've got the ability to impact the demosaicing and noise reduction in terms of luminance, noise, and force details, so I could change that on a different part of my image. But I've also got the ability to change how the lens sharpness optimization goes. And this is on 0 already. Again, I was in kind of having a play looking for a good image to demonstrate this, so it's remembered that. And it's got itself down on, it might be on 200, it might be up higher for sure. But if I bring that all the way down, turn off the show mask, now I'm just going to zoom back into 100% and use this little navigator over here to bring me back down to those rocks in the front. And now when I do my before and after, I can see that the distortion is changing, but the softness is not changing at all in there. It's not getting that kind of busy, worried look that it was getting previously. So I've heard a couple of people, a couple of YouTubers say they weren't 100% sure of this and whether or not they would be bothered doing this at this stage, etc. But I think depending on what you're doing, there could be some argument for it. If you want to keep some areas just looking a little bit differently. I'll just go ahead and bring that down to fit back on the screen again. And just before I pop out of here, just to say that I haven't gone over it, but we have the usual sorts of things that you might have here in our panel. So we're on the brush currently. That was sort of by default. But if I put it somewhere that I didn't mean to, I could come in here. Oops, I'll just show that again. I could come in here and edit that mask a little bit if I wanted to. I, of course, can, with the mask here, I could do a new mask, or I could duplicate the mask, or I could invert the mask, depending on what I'm doing. And, of course, we've got the old trash can if I want to get rid of the mask. So, and I think it's a really nice little touch that the export settings, they've kind of tucked away, because it's not, you're likely to probably use similar export settings each time, depending on your preference and your use case. So they've just got it as a third button on the side here now, the ability to change what you want to do. DNG, TIFF, JPEG, where do you want to put it, original folder, or set up another spot for it? Do you want to do any file renaming? And do you want to open it in another application after you've exported? With the export in another application, we've got Photoshop here. Something tells me I don't currently have Lightroom installed. But I think if you have Lightroom installed, it will show up here naturally. And then other than that, if you wanted to point towards another piece of software, Capture One, or whatever else you might use, you can just choose Select Software, set that up, and then it will persist here in the list for you each time. One other thing worth just mentioning is that if I were to turn on JPEG, I then also get a couple of extra settings on what my compression/quality setting would be, and do I want to use DxO Smart Lighting, which is sort of, it's something that exists within Photolab, and it looks at the image and tries to maximize, do the best kind of adjustments needed for the particular sort of histogram that you're dealing with. If I click this on now, we'll see that just lit up just a little bit. We'll probably find examples where it's a little bit better, easier to see. Actually, let me grab one of those. Let's be super curious what it does with this. If I turn that on and turn on Smart Lighting, it lifted the foreground a fair bit. So it's just trying to balance that histogram without going over the top. And you can, of course, if you want to be a bit more, you can take that more. Obviously, that's gone too far, but you know what I mean. You can kind of try to find what is the sweet spot for that particular setting. So, but that's only available on JPEG. If you're going to RAW, then that'll be part of your processing as you continue. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to leave these settings just as they are. So I've got a few images selected here, and of course if I want to process these ones in this certain way, maybe I add those to the queue, which brings me back here, and then perhaps I choose some other images. So I can see the images that have been queued up with this little symbol down in the bottom corner. But let's say that I want to add more to my queue, for example. Let's say I wanted to do this one, and just going to hold Control and do this one. And I want to process those as well. I don't need to go into the sort of visual preview viewer. I can just go to Process here. It's going to give me a few options just in text form. So if I'm happy with everything, I can just go straight Add to Queue or Process Now, depending on my preference. Or I can come up here and look at the corrections. It's got the ability to edit these, which gives me this little quick window, all the same choices. And down here as well, little quick window, all the same choices. So I can set that up particularly if I need to, but if I'm happy, I can just do Add to Queue. I have to say, from a workflow perspective, I find this a really smooth experience with both the possibility for simplicity and speed, or diving in with slightly more detail and more capability if that's what you want. It's really, and I find that this is often a hard thing to do. It's catering to so many different workflow types and so many different preferences. I think that they've really designed a super flexible tool here. And then, of course, one of the neat things about this is you don't need to sit about while it's doing its processing. You can come in, you can set things up, you can get your images added to the queue that you want to work on in the way that you want to set them up. And then when you're ready, you can come down here to Show Queue, and it's going to show you the images that are there for you. In the end, I didn't change anything, so these are all being processed in the same way. So they've all been put into a single batch, even though I added them at 2 different times. You have up here the ability to see what your process settings are for this batch, to open the destination folder, or to delete the batch. And then basically, if I'm happy, I can click play and go get a coffee. I thought it would be interesting for you to see how long it would take. Of course, it'll be a little bit different on everybody's system, just because of the different variables of how powerful people's systems are, etc., etc. But I have a reasonable graphics card, not a super flash one, and it seems to do a-okay with this. I thought that was plenty fast. And if you had heaps and heaps of them set up, then hey, you go and get a coffee, and life is happy. So what do I think of this release overall? I think it's really well done. I think I personally primarily use Photolab. I don't use PureRAW that much. The one exception being I do occasionally use it if I've got a massive number of images that I don't want to get caught up. If I've got like, let's say 1,000 images, let's say I've done a soccer game, and I've got a whole bunch of images. Sometimes if I don't want to get caught up in fussing with them too much, I'll pump them through PureRAW and I'll send them to JPEG in that case, because the exposure will be pretty good on them, etc., etc. And then basically I look at the results and do my culling from that, because I can just go quicker and I tend to fuss less. And then the only thing generally left that I'll do will just be a little bit of cropping, because things will tend to need some cropping. But I think, as with any software, the best way for you to know if it's right for you is download a trial, give it a crack. You get a 30-day trial with no limitations whatsoever. Just give it a try, see how it fits in your workflow, see what you think of the results with your images on your computer. And I do think that this is an important thing to highlight, is this is not an image editor. It is an image processor, sort of a pre-processor. So other than that smart lighting trick, it's not going to do much for things like exposure and white balance, of course. But what it does is it creates the best possible file for you to start with when you go to your editor. If you take this file here, for example, it's really, obviously super underexposed, which I did because I wanted to, not blow out this sun area too much. And in the spirit of, this being a software that you'll use with other softwares, I processed this image into a DNG, and if I just through the magic of my screen pop over to this slightly different folder, I've got an image here that I processed with SilkyPix. So I did it to DNG in PureRAW, and then I used SilkyPix, which, just wait, I'll just do that for a little wee preview. It's going to think. There we go. And this was my sort of finished edit. So it's a long way between that image on the side there and the final edit. But what that did was gave me a really, really good, clean, tidy starting place. So I'm going the other direction. So, this is absolutely pristine throughout the image. But it's an important distinction. This is not a raw processor. You'll do the rest of your processing elsewhere. This just gives you a really nice, beautiful, pristine starting point. So remember, if you made it this far through, that there is, in fact, a coupon code in the description for 20% off over Easter weekend. Give it a try. 20% off of new purchases. It's an important distinction. So if you're looking to upgrade, I'm sorry, this particular code won't help. And down there as well is an affiliate link, and I really appreciate you using that link and supporting the channel. So good luck. Have fun with PureRAW. I think it's a great wee application. I think that we should commend DxO for such a great effort. And, I have to say that, and I've been with DxO, using DxO, that is, for a really long time. And in the last 2 years, I have seen kind of a really renewed drive, it feels like. You know, I don't know. I'm on the outside, but it feels like a really renewed drive, and I really love a lot of the things that they're coming out with, and a lot of the things that they're doing to help encourage new customers and bring people into the DxO world. So have fun, and I will chat again soon. Bye for now.